In het boek Regime Change nemen de best ingevoerde Trump-watchers van Washington je mee binnen de muren van het Witte Huis.
The scenes, like, you wouldn't believe it if it wasn't true.
Ze reconstrueren gesprekken die leiden tot omstreden beslissingen.
I was just kind of shocked.
So was I.
En schetsen een ontluisterend beeld van de regering Trump.
It almost seems fantastical.
Een president die geen precedent kent.
Trump is using presidential power in a way we just have not seen in our lifetimes.
He's untouchable.
Must have been an enormous effort, this book.
I think we've said many times accurately that it nearly killed us, and it did almost kill us.
Why kill you?
Because this is a much tougher White House to get inside of. It's really hard. It's really hard generally. It's much harder in this term than it was last term, and we wanted to get as accurate a first draft of history down as we could.
Jonathan Swan won een Emmy Award voor een interview met Trump. Maggie Haberman een Pulitzer Prize voor haar verslaggeving over Trumps eerste termijn. Ze volgen hem al jaren op de voet, nu voor de New York Times.
I think there's still a perception or misperception that, a very transparent White House, because Trump he performs transparency, right? He invites the cameras into these cabinet meetings and, these wild Oval Office press conferences. But in reality, for the stuff that they actually care about, they're very, very good at keeping secrets. And as evidenced by, as recently as the Memorandum of Understanding to End the Iran War, almost no one in the US government had seen that document until they published it.
Het boek Regime Change staat bomvol gedetailleerde beschrijvingen van geheime gesprekken tussen Trump, zijn ministers en topadviseurs. In het Oval Office en zelfs in de Situation Room.
What we actually tried to do was just lay out the facts. This happened on this date. Here's where people were sitting. Here's what they were discussing. Here were the options that were looked at. Here were the after effects.
We conducted more than 1,000 interviews over that 3-year period. Many of them were on deep background, meaning we can use the information but not identify who gave it to us.
Het Witte Huis, 11 februari dit jaar. Premier Netanyahu pitcht Trump over een aanval op Iran en schetst een rooskleurig beeld. De president lijkt overtuigd.
So the CIA does this analysis and there's a meeting the next day in the Situation Room. So then Trump comes in and the CIA director John Ratcliffe tells him that the regime change scenarios that Netanyahu presented were, direct quote, farcical. Rubio, Secretary of State, National Security Advisor, pitches in and says they're bullshit. Okay? Interesting moment, your two very senior national security officials saying this whole thing you saw yesterday that you were quite impressed by, the regime change stuff, our people think it's like crazy, detached from reality.
The book is actually full of examples of Trump ignoring his advisors and then ending up in a mess.
Well, it's also full of examples of his advisors not vocalizing their concerns aggressively to Trump. So Epstein's a great example. The scenes, like, you wouldn't believe it if it wasn't true. I mean, it was in our book, but, it almost seems fantastical. But they were meeting in the White House Situation Room, the National Command Center of the US National Security Apparatus, to discuss Epstein, okay, his core team. Guess who wasn't in the room? Donald Trump. Because they knew he didn't want to hear about it. He hated the subject.
Haberman en Swan beschrijven ook slaande ruzies, zoals tussen miljardair Elon Musk en Trumps minister van Financiën.
Yes, there have been fights. Scott Bessent and Elon Musk had a physical altercation that sort of began in the Oval Office and then continued right outside of it.
Als Trump van het handgemeen hoort, wil hij maar één ding weten. Wie heeft er gewonnen?
These conversations, they're like verbatim conversations in the book. How is it even possible?
When we use quotes, it is either because the person has direct knowledge of a quote, or because there are contemporaneous notes, or because there's a recording. We don't just take one person's word for something. This is part of why this book took so long to do, is this took a very, very long time to feel comfortable and accurate about what we were laying out here.
J.D. Vance is suggesting there were audio recordings. Trump writes there are none.
They can say what they like. That's fine.
That's
fine.
That's their issue.
Aren't you worried about your sources? Because there must be like a leak hunt in the White House.
That's why we're not going to have a further conversation about this.
That's why we're not getting into it anymore.
Other than this, yeah.
Het boek grossiert in pikante anekdotes. Trumps perswoordvoerder treft hem aan in het Oval Office met superlijm, terwijl hij de schouw verfraait met gouden ornamenten. En zijn persoonlijke assistente Nathalie Harp laat adorerende briefjes achter in Trumps privévertrekken.
They were very personal letters, very unusual, containing phrases like, "You are all that matters to me." And the Secret Service became aware of these letters and were actually quite alarmed by them, as were some of the senior people on his staff. Trump has said privately to people that, Natalie, she's the only one who'll stay with me. She sort of exemplifies it, the most extreme version of the sycophant around him who'll tell him what he wants to hear. But she's also a channel of information for people who want to get things to Trump without having any type of vetting.
Volgens Trump is het boek grotendeels verzonnen, nepnieuws en fictie. Zo schrijft hij in een reactie op Truth Social. Maar tijdens een interview met de auteurs dit voorjaar reageert hij heel anders.
He essentially didn't object to our report. We were very transparent. We have this scene that says this, and he gave little tweaks here and there. But
what was the point? What were we looking at? I mean, we really wanted it to be a fact-check interview. We did not want to go in there and say, what's going on today, sir?
In hetzelfde interview vragen Haberman en Swan hem naar zijn macht. Trump laat hen een historische vergelijking lezen die hij heeft gekregen van een amateurhistoricus.
It opens with the statement that Donald Trump is the most powerful man who's ever existed on the planet by far. And then it goes on to compare him to what Trump describes to us as the top 10. Stalin, Mao, Hitler, Alexander the Great, Genghis Khan, William the Conqueror, the Caesars, Attila the Hun. I was just kind of shocked. I was just kind of reading it, just going like,
well, I was just listening to
what
him
is this
talk.
document? And the premise of the document was, the reason Donald Trump's the most powerful man that's ever existed is because he's in charge of the world's most powerful military, most powerful economy, but he's willing to use the power like other presidents haven't, which is actually the premise of our book, essentially.
He was mostly concerned with us understanding that he is willing to use power in ways that other people are not.
He's putting his physical imprint all over Washington, but globally, he looks at a map and he sees these giant areas of territory around America, and he thinks that should be ours. And that the way to be a great president is to add to the American landmass. So when he's talking about Canada and Greenland and Venezuela, some of them might have started as trolling, but they're not trolling at all. He really does want to actually colonize if he can.
Donald Trump. Hij gebruikt zijn politieke macht zoals geen andere president voor hem deed.
The self-dealing, for example, the use of government power to coerce so many parts of society. I mean, show me the analog. The Supreme Court immunity decision in 2024, conferring sweeping immunity on presidents. It's hard to overstate how psychologically important that is. He's untouchable.
Regime Change is een boek zoals dat normaal pas ruim na een historische regeerperiode wordt opgetekend. Haberman en Swan publiceren het nu al, amper 17 maanden nadat Trump aan de macht kwam.
Maggie and I are both newspaper reporters for the New York Times, daily newspaper reporters. When you're finding out about how the real conversations happen to go to war in Iran, things like that, you can't sit on that just as a journalist. I don't think you can. I think there was no doubt in our minds that we had to get this out as soon as we physically could. Trump is the most written about, talked about figure for the last decade globally. But what we hope to be able to do is give people a deeper understanding of his world, a more textured understanding, not just of how decisions were made, but his life inside the White House, inside the residence, how he receives information. And we try to do that in the book.
You said writing this book almost killed you. Will there be a part 2?
We'd like to finish through this period of time and see our families, meet them again, and it's certainly not something we're talking about right now.